This is the third video titled, There is Some Truth in Every Accusation. In the second video of this series titled Some Truth in Every Accusation, we talked about Jesus giving us a couple of passages that can be very helpful to us as it relates to this theme. Number one, we saw that Jesus defines murder not just simply in terms of stabbing someone or killing someone, but sometimes there are commandments that we need to learn to get to a deeper meaning of it. And he says, if you're angry at your brother, then you've committed murder already. And that's helpful for us to know. And I think it applies when we get into quarrels and fights with our spouses, for example, and trying to understand what it means to find some truth in every accusation. The second one is in Matthew chapter 7, where Jesus tells his listeners, before you point out the fault in the other person who you're dealing with, take the log first out of your own eye, and then you'll see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. So in these matters of judgment and assessing, Jesus is saying, first of all, I want you to turn the table around, look in the mirror, and assess yourself. So with that in mind, when we consider getting into a quarrel and our wives are saying things to us, husbands are saying things to their wives, and accusations are going back and forth, what I'm encouraging people to do is to, when that happens, is to ask yourself the question, well, there is some truth in every accusation. And so maybe I've got to listen to what my wife is saying or my husband is saying, and I need to get into a deeper understanding of that, perhaps, if I don't find myself guilty of what they're saying. And that's the first thing that I've got to really do, is to listen to what they're saying and to take seriously what they're saying and find out if I'm really at fault or not. So when you find your wife or husband or whoever accusing you of certain things, the first thing that you want to do is pray and draw near to God and ask Him to help you to see if there is some truth, and there is some truth in every accusation, and your first job is really to find that truth that is found in that accusation. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. Let's say there's a husband and wife who are having a quarrel. In the course of the quarrel, the wife says to the husband, "You are so mean." And when the husband hears that accusation on the part of the wife, what he needs to do is to learn how to ask himself the question, where is the truth in that accusation? If there is some truth in every accusation, then the first thing that I need to do is to find out where that truth is in terms of that accusation that's coming to me in terms of being mean. So the husband asks himself the question, well, in this quarrel, in this fight, in this interaction, have I been mean? And he may answer the question, yes, well, I have been mean. I've been sharp, I've been angry, I've been upset, I've said some mean things, and my wife is correct. So she's speaking the truth about when she's laying claim that I'm mean, and if she is speaking the truth, and you found the truth, then what you need to do is own it, admit it, and apologize for it. You know what, you're right. I am being mean. I was mean. I'm being mean, and that's not right. I own that. I'm not going to blame that on you. I'm not going to excuse that. I'm sorry. I'm going to stop being mean with God's help. Okay, so that's number one. If your wife is, for example, in this case, saying to you that you're mean, and she's right, and she's truthful, and she's being accurate, and you find some truth in that accusation, then the first thing you need to do is pray and acknowledge that and say, you know what, you're right. I'm sorry. You're right. Now, what do you do if you ask yourself the question, well, am I being mean? Have I said mean things? Have I behaved mean? And you're saying, I don't think I have, you're saying to yourself. So then you're like Jesus is teaching us, maybe this is an occasion when you need to get deeper than the meanness and what's connected underneath to the meanness that maybe might be true about that. So in this case, you would want to ask yourself the question, well, have I been annoyed? Have I been behaving and talking as though I'm annoyed? Have I been impatient, which could be a lesser form of being mean, as is annoyance? Have I said some things that are hurtful, which is a subset of being mean? Have I been angry? Have I been annoyed, upset, impatient? Have I said some things that are unkind? Have I hurt her feelings, which would be mean? And so you would want to try to get into that deeper meaning that we talked about a little bit earlier and ask yourself the question, well, maybe on that level I've been mean. And that's a reasonable thing to ask you. So if you haven't been mean and you've come to that conclusion, then ask yourself those questions. Underneath the surface, have I acted annoyed? Have I spoken to her unkindly? There's a deeper level there that you need to examine if you're going to try to find the truth that is in every accusation. Not that the entire accusation may be correct, but I think there is some truth in every accusation. Perhaps on the surface, by being mean, demonstratively mean, that we need to own up to and admit. But sometimes we have to say no to that to ourselves and try to get into the deeper meanings. Well, have I hurt her feelings? Have I been unkind? Have I rolled my eyes? Have I been defensive? Have I been impatient? Have I been angry? Those sorts of things, which is another way of saying, yeah, I have been mean. And if you can agree, if you see those things underneath the surface in terms of how you've been trying to treat her in that quarrel, well then, again, you need to go to that deeper level, figure that out, and if you're guilty on that deeper level, well, then you need to say to her, you know what, you're right, I have been mean. I've been annoyed, I've been impatient, I've interrupted you, I attacked your mother, I brought up the past, and I forgave you in certain things, but I'm bringing that back up, and that's mean, and I apologize. I am being mean. You're right. I am being mean, and I apologize for that, and I'm sorry about that. So, when she tells you mean, first level is you got to pray and ask God to help you to understand, have I been mean? And if you have, you need to apologize for it and own that and not rationalize that, excuse that away. But if you haven't seen yourself behave in that kind of a meanness, you need to prayerfully ask God to help you to see if you've been mean in other ways. You didn't commit murder, but maybe you've been angry underneath, down here, and you need to own up to that and apologize for that as well. I have found that 99% of the times there is an apology that is due to the wife in this case, because the husband in this case has been on some level on the outward mean or underneath on a deeper level mean, which he needs to prayerfully pray about, prayerfully look for first, prayerfully own if it's true and accurate, and then prayerfully offer an admission of that and an apology of that with your wife. I have found that 99% of the time, the husband is willing to prayerfully go about that, look for that truth that's in that accusation, or a wife similarly under a similar situation, ask the question, well, if there's some truth in every accusation, let me listen to what my husband is saying. Let me first find out if that's true. And if it isn't, I need to be willing to go to the deeper level and ask myself the question, have I been mean perhaps in these deeper ways? And if that's the case, then she needs to pause, prayerfully acknowledge that with her husband and apologize for that and ask forgiveness. Okay? That covers about 99% of the accusations that are flying in the course of an average quarrel and fight. But that'll go a long, long, long way. If you can learn to do that, if God can help you to learn how to do that, that is to say, find first of all the truth that is in every accusation and then own up to and admit it. That'll go a long way toward calming that quarrel and being in a better position of dialoguing from that point on. I hope that's helpful. I'm sure it will be. But we're going to take another example in the next video. We're going to come up with another example where someone's making an accusation which may not be obviously true, but on a deeper level it is. So we'll talk about that next time.